Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. More of the same. I don't know if this will be the only videos I'm making. Probably not, but it might be until I get this thing done. But more of the modern progressive art rock albums list. I'm just going to go over. I'll get as much done as I can today. I'm not sure how many it could be. 25, 20, 25, 30. You know, it just depends on how long this takes. So anyways, left off on 157. Comes in Esperanza Spalding's album 12 Little Spells from 2018. An album I like in some ways more than Emily's plus D plus Evolution, but kind of equal, where it's sort of the best moments are good, the rest of the record is just decent. Although I'm like Local Natives and some other catalogs, I still mean to like sort of refresh my taste in this. The last album came out in 2018. I remember when it came out, that experimental thing she had done um, turned out, and I bought the vinyl. Exposure was all right, but it just wasn't. It wasn't really as experimental as I hoped, even though it was experimental and that she made it live. But this is more along the lines of sort of blending genres, and it's progressive. It's the song "Dance," "Touch in Mine." There's a bunch of songs on this I really enjoy. The title track, "You Have to Dance," "Ready to Rise," "Dancing the Animal." It's another great record from her. I don't know if you'd call it more proggy than jazzy, but I don't know, I mean, there's people that absolutely love this album and maybe consider it her best record, so that's why it ends up on the list. Number 157, number 156, Steven Wilson's "Hand Cannot Erase." Yeah, I like this album. People like it more than I do, but I find that it's still a very creative, very creative concept album with the inspiration from that documentary about Carol Joyce Ann Vincent, the woman who was found dead how many years later in her apartment, and it was not based on that, but it was inspired by that. And then he talked about Kate Bush's The Dreaming. My favorite track on this is the really melancholy "Happy Returns," I believe. Yeah, but yeah, is it Happy Returns? Yeah, the second to last track. It's really sad. It's just super sad. It's sort of dreamy, melancholy sad, but the title track, "Perfect Life," is kind of weird and kind of mesmerizing. A lot of people love "Ancestral," that 13-minute track. "Home Invasion," you get a very different. You can get the sense of sort of the concept. It's obviously about someone whose place is being broken into, among other things. Yeah, I mean, I haven't listened to it a lot since 2015. I'll be honest, and there are other records like "To the Bones," a record I've listened to more, but I still enjoy it. I think it lives up somewhat to the hype. I think it's maybe a little overhyped, but as a whole, I think it's still warranted to be considered a really good record from him. So number 156, number 155, "People for Audio," The New Ancients. I think they have another record, but this is the only one I know. They're from Canada. Really small, unknown band from Canada that came out, and I stumbled across this. I want to say when I was at Cheapo, or maybe it was online, someone's recommendation. I mean, it's lower fi production, but it's very trippy at times, and they capture that sort of early Pink Floyd, like the post Sid, pre Dark Side Pink Floyd element really well. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have it on CD. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I remember. I mean, I've been meaning to actually. People for Audio are, they're like Bryce Plays Drums or some of these other bands. They're like a local band really, but but if you like Pink Floyd inspired, art rock, this is as good as it can get, to me in a lot of ways. The New Ancients from People for Audio from 2007. Not sure where from Canada they're from. I think they might be from Winnipeg, but no, they're from Montreal. Okay. Yeah, they have another album that I've never heard. I wonder if it's on Spotify actually, and this will be our homecoming. But I've always wanted to hear that. Although the New Ancients is considered the better of the two, but then I think they broke up. Unfortunately, they were included in the Ben Sinister documentary. What was it called? The Road, something. The Road. When they were documenting their touring of their second album, or the third album technically, second album. Anyway, Russian Circles Enter from came out in 2006. To me, even though it's really post-metal, it's really sort of the first post-metal album I ever listened to. Now you wouldn't call Russian Circle metal really at all. This album, though, is... Russian Circles is a band that I kind of gave up on. But this first record, when they first came out, I loved. Death Rides a Horse. What's the other one? There's a couple really big numbers on the Carpe. That's the other one. I've seen them live like 3 or 4 times. I respect them, but I've just kind of they've gotten past me where they're doing the kind of explosions in the sky kind of post rock, and I'm not as into it. But this record itself, I still could go back to, and have gone back to it. To me, it's like when I originally listened to it, it sounded like Fates Warning or Rush, like the heavier Rush. Basically an instrumental version of it in a lot of ways. Now, I don't know if that's the best description, but I still kind of contend that they're really doing just instrumental prog metal in a way. But, with some elements of post-rock, I guess you could say, but great dynamics on this record. Yeah, Russian Circles Enter from 2006, the debut album. Number 153, Phantom Cabinet Volume 1 from Pepe Deluxe. I put this in here... I'm kind of on the fence about this album now. It was a big deal to come out last year in 2021. I do have some highlights. There's not any songs I don't like, but General Deluxe, The Halls of Kalevala, Fire Up the Crimson Lion, A Morning Beautiful. There's a lot of good songs on it. So in that sense, I guess if this was their only album, I could easily see it warranting being on this list. Now I give it 4.5 stars. I'm not so sure about that. I maybe bumped it on half a star. I like it, but it's, it took so long for this to come out. I know that feeling that people waited for the third Boston album. I hope their next record, Volume 2, ends up coming out sooner than later, not 9 years. But, for what it is, it's good. It's a good album. I just don't think, compared, I might put some of the stuff below it. I don't know. It's splitting hairs, I guess, still, but, the previous record was so good, and some of the other records are good. I'm not sure if it's actually better than my second favorite album from them, for example. I don't know. I still like it, but again, it's only been a year, so in fairness, time will tell more of that. All right, so moving on. Let's see, number 152, Tokyo Jihen Sports. I'm not going to be able to elaborate a lot about the Tokyo Jihen albums, but they belong on this list, number 152, for Tokyo Jihen, 2010. But Tokyo Jihen, when they're good, they're really good. They're really creative. That jazzy, sort of jazz fusion-y, but, with the Japanese rock style, and having, a lot of dynamic and a lot of kind of different variety of styles, really. This album, I sampled a little bit of it again. I haven't listened to this album in many years, but when I got into it back in 2011, I was first getting into Tokyo Jihen. It's still good. There's another record I have on here a little higher, but it's, it's one of their, it's their second best record to me. It's, look at my friends' ratings, they're pretty high, but, I couldn't even describe to you the song titles other than a few of these that are in English. I'd have to get a translator. But anyway, it belongs on this list because I listened to it enough back when I first heard it, But again, the album that I have ranked higher, I'm a little more into, and they have a couple of records they've released since I've liked that didn't make the list. They're pretty consistent, Tokyo Jihen. They haven't really released any poor records, but this is to me their second best record, Sports. All right, number 151, the final Aerogrom record. Of course, people have gotten into some of the members of Aerogrom through churches who I don't care for. But this is My Heart that Has a Wish That You Would Not Go. 2006. Yeah, I think that was the year. For some reason, I think it was 2007. Maybe it was originally released in 2006. I think I remember it coming out, a version of it coming out, in 2007. So, there's only that original released one. Trenches, The Running Man, Barriers, and Exits. Those are, they're. I remember the singer kind of reminded me of Matt from Anathello, but it's very textured rock. Very. I don't know how a better way to describe it. I mean, they're some of their earlier records are pretty heavy. This is more melodic and atmospheric. They give the sort of not. It's like saying something's interesting. What do you say? It's atmospheric, but it's atmospheric rock. But it doesn't always say it's well. There aren't any really extensively long tracks on here. There's a couple of them that are like maybe almost 7 minutes, but like most of them are like 3 to 4 minutes in that range. Most of them are like 4 minutes actually. But yeah, they're banned from some part of the UK. I think they're from England. Yeah, they're from Glasgow City. Well, I don't know if that's part of Scotland actually. Doing my knowing not knowing my British or European geography that well. But anyway, Ariagram's album, their final album from 2007, 2006, 2007. My Heart Has a Wish That You Would Not Go. Kind of the title fits the music pretty well. So the debut album from Dredge, Leitmotiv, I have it from 1999 at number 150. It's an album I know rather well, and while all the other Dredge albums other than Chuckles I prefer, like the following three albums, I guess you could say, sort of spoiling things a little bit. It's still a really good album, and I saw the whole thing live, and between Symbol Song and Penguins in the Desert, and of course Yadahazi, which is sort of the staple they played for that was played live long after the tour for this album. Sort of the concept of it, and the different movements, Lechium. It's speaking of atmospheric, it's very atmospheric. It's probably in some ways the heaviest Dredge album, but Gavin's vocals are good, are really good. And they, after you get into the band, not an album I would recommend to most people to start on unless they're metalheads. If you've never listened to Dredge, but Leitmotiv is an album that is well worth getting into after you initially become a fan, because you'll hear the contrast in styles, but you can appreciate a lot of things they did. They do things with little, a lot of non-rock instrumentation on here, some sort of choral or operatic sampled vocals almost, or just vocals from other people. You kind of get it's raw. Yeah, some people I would call it raw, and it's not that long. You have whatever there's 90 hours sleep, and that's a jam. It kind of goes on. It's like there's a lot of dead space, but it kind of is an album that doesn't overstay its welcome. That's part of its charm. So number 150, Leitmotiv. So I have To the Bone from here, Steven Wilson again, number 149. And I don't see this as dramatically better than Hand Cannot Erase, but I think it's more song oriented. There's more songs to kind of appreciate. The Same Asylum as before, Refuge, what is it? People Who Eat Darkness, Detonation, Permeating, of course, is really catchy and poppy. And I like it when Steven Wilson does pop music. I think he has a knack for it as a songwriter. The title track, yeah, I really expect unexpectedly, but I enjoyed this album more than I would have expected. I think, especially after the description of all the stuff in the early reviews and stuff back in 2017. So yeah, To the Bone, number 149 from Steven Wilson. Number 148, the second and final album from Australian atmospheric alt-western post-rock band Clan Zoo, Black Coats and Bandages. This is I believe the album that has One Bedroom Apartment, which is maybe the best song they ever wrote. It's so moving. The piano part is and then with the little, like that, you call it tremolo picking, the guitar riff that kind of crescendos out, but that piano part, there's a ton of emotion in that, and Gavin DeBarra's vocals, Declan DeBarra rather. But yeah, I mean, I go back and forth about Clan Zoo, just like the first two Murder by Death albums, where I don't know which one I really like more than the other, because like this almost has more better songs, but I think I like their previous record more. I'll see where that falls, but yeah, if you've never, I did a video on Clan Zoo, it was like last year I think, and yeah, I mean Black Coats and Bandages it's a record I still return to and enjoy. If you like, it's the kind of post rock with other styles that I appreciate. Yeah, there's elements like slowcore, um, and folk elements, especially in this, but it's very creative. Sort of less is more. It fits and it's very atmospheric, and if you're thinking about Western kind of kinds of soundtracky music, this is as good of music as you can get. So, Clan Zoo, number 148. All right, moving on. Number 147, the new album from Family Crest, The War Act 2. I talked about this in my albums of the year from 2022. There's a few songs that totally stick with me. Hearts on Fire and Pride. Those are the biggest earworms, but it's pretty consistent. It's not. I think it's a love song. A love song. I would have felt like if they would have ended the album, I would prefer it. It sounds like a song that should end the album, but they have. I mean, cold, cold, cold is nice. Is a nice ender. Baby, You've Got Your Legs. That rhythm they use is pretty memorable. This doesn't. A lot of the chamber rock elements are in this. I was probably more excited for this album than I ended up enjoying it, but that said, I've mentioned before, I listened to it the day that my cat died, so it was sort of hard for me to appreciate it, and I'll never forget that, unfortunately. Yeah, and it just came out literally 6 months ago, so again, putting stuff like Pepe Deluxe Phantom Cabinet Volume 1 and this, it's a little hard to say, do they hold up through, do they stand the test of time, but as it was, being as that is, rather, yeah, this is still another record that I enjoy from the Family Crest, The War Act 2, from 2022. So number 146, Salamander from Childish Japes and Dave Ives. Now, it came out in 2018. I'll say this, Dave Ives has an amazing voice, very much like Jeff Buckley. I mean, but in a good way. And that's really kind of, over some time, I mean, this album still is growing on me. I'd say over the last couple years it has. Yeah, I mean, this is, it's proggy post rock, or I don't even call it post rock. It's like jazzy, sort of jazzy post rock in a way with vocals. Yeah, I mean, I think the vocal performance is the biggest reason why I love this album, or I really appreciate this album. Unfortunately, I don't know if Dave Ives is ever going to work with Childish Japes again, but what can you do? They made a really good record back in 2018, at least. Number 146, Salamander. Number 145 from 2018 again, Kindo, or previously and now currently The Reign of Kindo, also known as The Reign of Kindo. Their album Happy However After. An album that I had heard all the songs a couple years before it came out because of being on the Patreon. But my favorite track on this is About Love. But City of Gods is the proggiest one. Human Convention, Let Me Be, One in a Million, Smell of a Rose, Return to Me. There's really not a bad. I mean, I don't really tend to skip many songs unless I'm like want to listen just about love or something like that. But yeah, I mean, this is still one of the better records, or at least this is still worthy of the Kindo / The Reign of Kindo canon. And I know some people that really love this album. Some of the fans prefer it to other than the debut album. But anyway, it's like splitting hairs. Kindo's Happy However from 2018, number 145. Number 144, The Disassociatives, debut and only album from 2004. The self-titled. This is Daniel Johns of Silverchair and working with Paul Mac. I did talk about this in that Silverchair video I did last year. And it's not like Silverchair exactly, even from that period, but there's elements of it. It's very layered, electronic, proggy power pop, really is the best way to put it. There's a lot of hooks, a lot of choruses, a lot of little catchiness to a lot of the songs, a lot of layers. I mean, it's one of those albums where you keep going back to and you hear new things. What would I say is my Angry Megaphone Man, Horror with Eyeballs were much preferred customers, Young Man, Old Man. I mean, there's a lot of just kind of very memorable little motifs in it, and just vocal arrangements that are great. You can totally tell the work he had done on with Diorama, and then he was going toward doing with Young Modern. You can hear where he was going, Daniel John. So there was an influence with that, but this is different. This is different in some ways. Of course, it doesn't have the band Silverchair either. So 144, the Disassociatives. Number 143, The Electric Lady from Janelle Monáe, her second proper full-length album. I'm not into this as much as her debut album, but I still enjoy it a lot. It does have, among other guests, Prince. Look at this. Esperanza Spalding. And that's my favorite track, actually, in some ways. I think it is Dorothy Dandridge Eyes. Yeah. The title track has Solange Knowles, of course, and then Erykah Badu on Queen. I haven't listened to the whole thing in a long time. I'll go back to tracks once in a while. Ghetto Woman's another one I enjoy. I mean, there's a song about rock and roll in this. We Were Rock and Roll is really memorable. It's kind of like the previous records. She definitely explores a lot of styles, and that's the reason why I appreciated this album. It's very, it's varied from her funk and R&B stuff to the sort of psychedelic pop stuff to even, she brings in her hip hop, of course, too. And I would deny, that, having here a little more of Outkast. There's a definite Outkast influence. I think she was either on or she worked with, and of course the first album had Big Boy, and I don't know if the other guy from Outkast, Andre 3000, was on. I forget. Anyway, we'll be coming to that album at some point down the road, but The Electric Lady from Janelle Monáe from 2013, number 143. So how are we doing for time? We're looking at 21 minutes. All right, I'll do, I think, one more. I wanted to get to 125, but that wasn't really meant to be. I'll try to do one or two more here. So, number 142, Squid's Bright Green Field. This is an album that came out from 2021 that I've only gone back to more often because I enjoy it more. And I didn't hear it until really toward the end of the year in 2021, but it ended up in my top 5 records. Paddling is my go-to, but Narrator, this is prog, and this is of that kind of Brixton sound where you're lumping in the Black Midi and a Black Country New Road. I think this band's better. Now we'll see what they go on their second record, because I like the first Black Country New Road record. I did not like the one that came out this past year. But I kept on wanting to listen to this more and more and more. Maybe it's the energy and the dance punk element that I'm a sucker for, kind of like Foals and a lot of other bands that emphasize energy. Energy is a total key thing, and that's an element of being artsy in a lot of ways in my mind. So anyway, the debut album from Squid, Bright Green Field from 2021 at number 142. So number 141, this is a really good record. I'm actually surprised how low I put it. Aunt Mom Zoomer from Wolf Parade. It has one amazing song, one of the best songs of the last couple decades in Kissing the Beehive, the last track, the 10-minute. That is total prog, the way it comes back. I wrote this little review back in, yeah. This album is really fun, though. I mean, what's the other one? There's one other, just California Dreamer is my other go-to on this record, but I like Wolf Parade. I like some of their other records, but this album is the one the peak of my interest. And even if you don't ever listen to anything else, listen to Kissing the Beehive if you like prog. That song is so addictive. The way fire in the hose, fire. It just, the energy is infectious, and the way that the sort of movements, dun 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 dun, dun, the piano part and everything. I mean, Wolf Parade, I wouldn't call a prog band, but they do enough of it to sort of fit in the style. So, whether people like to accept it or not, I don't really care. Anyway, number 140, Clone. Now, okay, so this was released online only. This is a side, one of many projects from Ben Cooper of, best known probably for Radical Face, but also Electric President. This is like sort of his conceptual electronic-esque project. And I've been meaning to go back to it. I loved it in 2014. It's all on YouTube. It was on a couple of sites at one point, but it's about, I mean, it's a concept record about, it's acts 1 through 6 about the process of cloning humans, I think. I'm not sure. But it's very surreal, very cinematic, and it works really well. In fact, I'm actually probably putting it too low. It looks like the last record. But this is what I'm talking about, where we're getting into some of the cream of the crop. It's like, I love this record. Why is it this low? That's the question I'm asking myself, and someone who loves it might see it and be like, I love that record. Why is it that low? But yeah, this is a record I need to go back to. I need to do a separate video on. I've never done a video on Radical Face, which I like Radical Face, but in some ways I think this might be the best thing he's ever done. And Electric President's not a band I've spent a lot of time with, even though I've known about him. But anyway, Clone, not the band that's Clone with a K. Clone, it's a collaboration actually of Ben Cooper and one of his friends. I forget who the other musician is in this project. Richard J. Collado of Rickolos. And I remember trying to check out some of his music, and kind of didn't work too much for me. But yeah, I think Clone, from my memory at least, back in 2014 when I got into it, it was a breath of fresh air, and I just enjoyed it more and more every time I heard it. So number 140, number 139, White Lighter from Typhoon. In some ways, probably the best Typhoon album. Yeah, if push comes to shove, if I was going to one, I would still lean toward this record. The first album I got that they released after I got into them, I'd gotten into a New House, the EP the year before, but Young Fathers was a highlight. Hunger and Thirst, which is kind of interesting because they had a previous record called Hunger and Thirst, a little Zeppelin thing that they're doing. It was one of those records where every time I listened to it, I was expecting to get bored by it and never did. And it's really not that long. I don't have the times on the tracks here. I want to say this album is about 40 minutes. And, it's chamber rock. And again, they kind of took the mantle from, they're comparing to Arcade Fire, but I don't care for Arcade Fire. They took the mantle from Anathello and Margot Lucrezonso's and doing the chamber rock. I mean, you could put the Deer Hunter in there as well. And this is one of the key progressive chamber rock albums of the 2010s to me. So, White Lighter from Typhoon, number 139. Number 138, speaking of slightly chamber rock, Bruce Peninsula's A Mountain Is a Mouth. This is their best record, too. It came out in 2009. It's got Crab Apples, Shanty Song, Inside Outside Steamroller. A lot of really good catchy moments. Yeah, dynamics, the tribal element, the gang vocals. This band is really good. This is their debut album. Came out in 2009. I didn't find out until like a year, like the next year. But yeah, this is a fun record. Their singer, admittedly, does have a bit of a similar, the main singer, Neil Haverty, a little bit of a Tom Waits element. But for whatever reason, I don't mind him. I'm not much of a Tom Waits fan, but I like his kind of his voice with their music especially. And I believe Misha Bauer does some of the other vocals on this. But yeah, this band, they're really unknown. They're from Canada. There's a part of Canada known as Bruce Peninsula, and from Toronto actually. But yeah, they put out another record a couple years ago that was pretty good too, No Earthly Sound. But yeah, Mountain Is Mouth, the debut album from Bruce Peninsula. Number 140? 138 rather. All right, we'll do one more and then call this one a day, because these are taking a long time because I have to babble on too long for them. Okay, the Tea Party, The Ocean at the End. I'm taking a little bit of a liberty here in that I'll give part of it away. There's no more albums from the Tea Party. They just kind of fit within the scope of this landscape of this style of music, because they're not exactly traditional prog or retro prog rock. They're kind of blues rock, but this album I thought they went more on prog. And they had an obvious element of, the whole alternative college, indie rock in their sound. A lot of classic rock on this album too. This album was a big deal. There was there was a lot of hype around it, and to me, I felt like it lived up to it. They worked with, I want to say, was it David Bottrill? It might have been David Bottrill, but yeah, I mean, Brazil, the Black Sea, The Maker. Waters on Fire is haunting. The title track, it's a kind of a concept album. I mean, I wasn't in awe, but it was their first album in many years. I want to say it was like a 6, 7, 8 year hiatus. They had put out an album in 2004, if I'm not mistaken, the Tea Party. Yeah, Seven Circles. So it was actually 10 years since Seven Circles. So I mean, it was like, well, they ever gonna put an album, and then it was like it was a breath of fresh air when it came out. So yeah, The Ocean at the End, while they're not identical and they're maybe a little bit of a different generation, some of these bands, still record that kind of finds this sort of hybrid of styles and is on the list from the this modern sounding prog rock of a sort. Anyway, number 137, The Ocean at the End. Number 136, Emergence from Grimace. I love a lot of the Grimace albums, but this is the first one I got into, and I think it's still probably my favorite, even though it's pretty long. 16 songs, 51 minutes. The Hell I'm In, there's some of my favorites. Peregrine, I can't remember if there's a title track. Yeah, the title track is the second track. Weird Disco. I remember what they basically won me over. I'm like, well, every song that this band puts out, every song on this album is really good. I don't know why more people don't know this band. Yeah, they have a bit of a, like a similar kind of element to Ours with the U2 elements and the textured rock elements, but it's left of center rock, and so it's artsy rock, and it's an epic record. They have some time changes, a lot of dynamics, and really good vocal lines. Like I said, I know at one point the vocalist sounds like either it's the same singer. There's two different singers on the band. I've never been able to distinguish which one is on certain songs. Sometimes his voice may change. Anyway, speaking of singers that sound like Jimmy Necco of Ours, Dream the Electric Sleep's album from 2014, the same year as Emergence from Grimace. It's like this is a 2014 run, 137 through 135. Heretics. This is my favorite album from Dream the Electric Sleep, the album that got me into them. My favorite song is Elizabeth still. The build and that sort of, it's almost like a galloping thing at the beginning of that is just, it gets me every time. Utopic, The Name You Fear, To Love Is To Leave. This is a great record. It flows pretty damn well. And, Matt Page's vocals, it's just interesting how, I think it's Matt Page. He doesn't sound quite like this in the records that have come since. It's weird. But, yeah, Dream the Electric Sleep, this is their masterwork called Heretics. It talks about different people in history and everything like that. Queen Elizabeth, is it? Harriet Tubman, you name it. But yeah, but it's not like traditional prog. Again, it's sort of the hybrid of styles. Anyway, number 135 from 2014, Dream Electric Sleep's Heretics. Number 134, Timmy Shawn, Songs from and Inspired by Noisewater. This is Timmy Shawn's best work to me. Very kind of orchestral, power popish at times, catchy, but very high produced. We don't have a track list. I hear elements of Silverchair and the Jellyfish, the Beach Boys, Muse. There's a lot of it's just well written. It's his debut album too, solo debut. He had other bands. He has Servideo and Lose Air and some other bands. But yeah, this is a really fun textured record. Not a song I skip, and it's an distinction. That's one of the only albums on this list my wife actually likes. 134, Timmy Shawn, Songs from and Inspired by Noise, where you can check it out on Bandcamp. Might also be on Spotify, and of course a lot of his other albums. So number 133, Biffy Clyro's Puzzle. I like a lot of Biffy Clyro albums, but this like some of these other bands I've just talked about, this is the album that got me into them, and I just have a sort of a nostalgia and a connection most to it. It's a long record, kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's 50 minutes, but it's 13 songs. It's very riffy, very energetic at times. Who's Got a Match is probably the song I think of the most for it. But what's the song? The title, the opening track, Living's a Problem Because Everything Dies. I mean, it definitely was written sort of after difficult circumstances for the band or for the lead singer and the guitarist. What's his name? I don't even remember his name. Ian something? I forget Simon Neil. Yeah, no, this is, I mean, no, everyone, I mean, there's a lot of great choruses, a lot of dynamics. It's kind of, their earlier stuff was more experimental, at times heavier and more raw, and their more recent stuff has become more catchy and more, we wouldn't call stripped down. This is sort of a marriage between where they used to be and where they've gone. It's like the best of both in a lot of ways, because it's experimental enough to me. And I kind of liken them in some way style to Fair to Midland and Carnival and some of the other bands. I mean, they're not maybe quite as heavy now as they used to be, but of course Mike Van Art plays with them live and has been playing with them live for over 10 years. So, well, I think that's about it because I gotta stop for now. But let's see here. I'll hopefully resume either tomorrow or I don't know about later. I might have time later, but more likely tomorrow on the next part of the list. But thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We'll see you next time.